Hello everybody and welcome to my May wrap up. I'm here with Willow, who is trying to eat my hands, my feet, the books, my notes, my everything. So I have a lot to talk about today. May was a complicated month when it came to books for me. I DNF'd 3 books. Sorry, I'm trying to check on the dog. Right in a row, which was definitely a challenge for me because I started feeling really discouraged and everything. But I did discover audiobooks. I've always been like, they're not for me, and I tried them out and I loved them. So I listened to 4 this month, and I did end up finishing 11 books. And I did a reading vlog the last week of May and read 5 books, either finished books I'd already started or start and finished. I think I finished 1 and finished 4. So in all, I read 11 books, 4,938 pages. I DNF'd 3 books, and I listened to 4 audiobooks. So that being said, let's get started. The first book I read this month was one I was really excited for, and that is Sunflower Sisters by Martha Hall Kelly. This is the last book in the Lilac Girls trilogy, and it moves back in time. So the first one starts during World War II, then Lost Roses is World War I, and this one is the Civil War, and it deals with Caroline Faraday's great aunts and grandmother during the Civil War. Once again, you have 3 perspectives. You have, it's been a while, I have to look again, Georgie and Eliza, who want to be nurses for the Union during the Civil War. You have Gemma, who is an enslaved person in Maryland. So Maryland, with the passage of the Emancipation Proclamation, since it fought for the North, was still allowed to continue with slavery. I just taught all of this in school, so I drove that point home super well. And then Anne May, who is the mistress of the plantation where Gemma works. And all 3 stories intertwine beautifully, really well written, very long, definitely a thicker book. It's something like 500 pages, just south of 500 pages. And I gave this one a 4 stars. Next was a reread for me. I forgot I had 2 rereads during this. And that's Wideacre by Philippa Gregory. And this takes place in the 1700s. And Beatrice Lacey lives on Wideacre Estate, and she's obsessed with Wideacre. She's the mistress there. Well, her dad owns it, her dad runs it, her brother will inherit it, but Beatrice starts going to really extreme and twisted measures in order to gain Wideacre Estate for herself and later for her son, which ends up with some horrific consequences. And it's twisted, it's weird, it's bizarre, it is uncomfortable. There's so many trigger warnings. I don't even think I can list them all. And I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Next I have, this was Haley and Bookland's top book for last year. and it sounded really intriguing, so I wanted to check it out. And that's Lovely War by Julie Berry. And this is 2 love stories between, you have Hazel and James and Aubrey and Colette. And they take place during World War I. And they're narrated by the Greek gods, mostly Aphrodite. But you have the other Greek gods. You have Apollo, Ares, and I feel like there's one more who makes an appearance, and I can't remember who. Hades, who all make appearances and fill in parts of the story as well. And there were 2 things I liked about it. First of all, it was World War I, which is not a time period that there are lots of books about. I'm sorry, Willow has a toy that's very crinkly and is playing with it. And then the narration by the Greek gods was fascinating and just really insightful. I gave this a 4 stars, was like a 3.5. 4 stars. And that's because I really didn't understand the whole point of telling the stories. Like, there was Aphrodite's like, I'm going to tell you the story and it's going to convince you of something. But I really didn't see how that did it until the very end. So the whole time I'm like, what's the point? Why are we doing this? So yeah, I think I'd give this like a 3.75 out of 5. Next, I have the first book I DNF'd, and this might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but that is The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. You can see where I gave up. The bookmark is still here. I don't need that anymore. So I couldn't get into it. I don't know. I don't know. I did watch the show though, and I thought the show was fabulous. So I think I'm going to stick with the show and just give this to the little free library that's right up the street. I'm sure someone will be super excited to see it. My next book, though, was one that was absolutely amazing, and that was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. The cover is gorgeous, first of all, and then under the book jacket, so gorgeous as well. So this is about Imani, who as a freshman in high school got pregnant, and so she's trying to balance. She wants to be a chef, so she takes a culinary arts class senior year. She's trying to balance that with trying to figure out if she can go to college, being a teen mom, and just the emotions and the way that it was written was so good. There were happy tears that I was crying in the end. I loved it so much. Next, I have another DNF, and that is No Time Like the Future by Michael J. Fox. This was a book club book for me. I DNF'd both book club books this month. And I was never a big Michael J. Fox fan. I've never seen Back to the Future. And I felt like he was just jumping all over the place. And I wasn't the only one who thought that. My mom brought that up too when she, at book club, she felt that she had no idea, like he was just going from this point to this point to this point to this point. And we really couldn't make a lot of sense out of why these different points were being brought up. Right, she's chewing on a toy. We're good. I got her some new toys from Chewy, meaning I wanted to get the Chewy order over the amount to get free shipping, and I was like, she needs toys. So she got some new toys. Next book was an add-on that I did for Book of the Month, and that is The Bad Muslim Discount by Sayid and Massoud. And this book is about two families. You have Anvar, who is growing up in Pakistan, and his family moves to America to escape radicalism. And then you have Safwa, who is growing up in Baghdad in Afghanistan. And her dad is very conservative. He is arrested at one point by the government of the American government, and just dealing with their adjustment to the United States. And eventually, like for a while, I'm like, I really don't see how these stories are going to connect, but eventually they do. I liked it. I gave it a 4 stars. I really liked it, but I also found it somewhat forgettable. Like once I read it, I was already forgetting about what happened, which made me sad because it really was a great book. All right, next is my last DNF, and that is Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. This book, I don't even know what it's about. I can't even tell you. It's about a girl who, like, she keeps dying and then, like, coming back to life again and then dying and, like, coming back to life again. And you can see where I just gave up because I could not even make heads or tails of it. I DNF'd it. It was confusing as heck. If you liked it, I give you a lot of credit, but I definitely think the 3 books I DNF'd, I'm going to take up to the Little Free Library when I take my niece and nephew this coming weekend. I have another reread, though, that I did this month. This was a book that I read a while ago, and I didn't really remember it. All I knew is I remembered reading the first one, but none of the other ones in the series. And sorry, I'm looking for the dog. And that is Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. So Tally is about to turn 16, and she lives in a society where when you turn 16, you get basically plastic surgery to go from being ugly to a pretty. And so she is really excited about that until she meets Shay. And Shay does not want to become a pretty. And Tally starts learning that things are more complicated than they appear. And this is part of her quartet. I only read the first one, but my friend loaned me all 3, and I'm super excited to finish the rest of the books and kind of work my way through them over time as quick reads. It was a very quick read. Felt like it was very watered down. I gave it a 3 stars. I definitely feel that young adult books, this book was published in, trying to find it, 2005. And I just felt that it wasn't as hard-hitting as a lot of the young adult books that you see today. All right, now we're getting into the books that I read for my readathon, and I will be sure to link that video down below for you for my reading vlog. And the first is Members Only by Samir Pandya. And this is about a guy named Raj, and he is on the membership board for his tennis club, which I'm like, what? Is it like a country club or what? And it kind of is. Like, people apply, and it's really prestigious, and you go and you play tennis, and there's like a pool, and it's like a community center, but it's mostly just for playing tennis. And he's the only person of color on the board, or at the club as a whole. And he's really excited when an African-American family couple applies. So I'm trying to keep the puppy entertained. And he's really excited, and then he makes a racist joke. And it falls flat. And then to add insult to injury, see, Willow says hi. Say hi. Say hello, I'm very awake right now. To add to Raj's stress, he is accused, he's an anthropology professor at the local college, and students record some of his lectures and accuse him of being anti-American and a reverse racist, and his videos go viral on the internet. And so obviously he has a lot going on. The book makes it sound like he's just talking about the tennis club, but most of the focus was on the community college issues. And then on top of that, I felt like Raj was a terrible character. He was always like, well, this is just how I am. This is what I think. I'm allowed to think what I think. I'm allowed to make jokes how I want. And he didn't really learn anything, and nothing really changed, and everything turned out all hunky-dory, and people were like, oh, that's just how Raj is at the end. And that just all annoyed me so much. So I gave this like a 2.75 out of 5 stars. I really did not like it at all. I'm definitely going to unhaul that one. One moment. Sorry about that. We have like barriers to keep Willow in the living room, the family room and the dining room, and her food and water was in the kitchen, and she was hungry. So I had to go get her food and water and bring it back in here for her to have a snack. All right, the next book I read is The Pact by Jodi Picoult. And this is about 2 families. They've been friends for like ever. The kids have grown up together, and they start dating, and everything's great and wonderful, and the parents are so excited that the kids are dating. And then one day everything is torn apart when the families get called to the hospital, and Emily is dead, and Chris has been admitted, and they find out that there was some sort of suicide pact between the 2 of them, and it tears the families apart. And then it's like, well, is that really what happened? Is it really, like, you start questioning it, and then Chris is arrested, and all sorts of craziness, and this book tore into my heart. I wanted to so many times reach into this book, hug the characters, tell them that they were loved and that they are worth it, because there's just so many emotions, and they're captured absolutely beautifully in this book. And it's touted as a love story, and it really is, and it's a love story on multiple levels. And I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I have my book of the month book, and that is Imposter Syndrome by Kathy Wang. And this is about a woman, Julia, who's Russian, and she's basically recruited by the Russian government and groomed to create a tech business, like a social media business, here in America. And then she's supposed to then sell and give information to the Russian government. And she's doing this for a long time. And then there's this one character, Alice, who is like a tech support person for the company, and finds out that this is catches her boss. And Alice is trying to figure out what to do. And Julia's, starting to put down roots and everything, and starting to question, is this really what she wants? She worked really hard to get to where she is. Is this really what she wants, to sell all of this information to the Russian government? And it was all right. Once again, members only, I felt like the characters really didn't learn their lesson in the end. It just wrapped up real quick, and everybody's like, okay, and they all lived happily ever after the end. And that was really frustrating to me. The ease with which Russia could get this information was very frightening and very relevant. And so I found that very disturbing, but interesting and fascinating at the same time. I gave this book a 3.5 stars. My last 2 books are just absolutely fabulous. The first one is Layla by Colleen Hoover. This was a buddy read that a friend of mine picked, and I was like, really? But I went with it. I said, you pick. And so she picked, and oh my gosh, guys, oh my gosh. So it's about this couple, Leeds and Layla, Leeds, Leeds, and they meet, they fall head over heels in love. It's a whirlwind romance, and then this tragedy happens. And Layla is trying to recover from this tragedy, but she's just not back to her usual old self. So Leeds takes her to the bed and breakfast where they met and fell in love so they can rekindle their romance. Except that Leeds starts interacting with this other... Okay, he interacts with the ghost. It's a ghost. He discovers that it's haunted. He starts interacting with this ghost, and just things start to get really complicated, and he starts to question exactly what's going on. And I mean, it had me on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what was going on right until the very end. Very strong, definite 5 out of 5 read. I thought it was better than Verity, because in Verity, the characters were just the worst. And finally, I read, for physical books, Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Grishaverse trilogy, and I really wasn't sure what it was about. But basically, it's this girl, Alina. She lives in a world where there's something called the Fold, and it's like this dark part where there's no light right down the middle. And there are these monsters called Volcra that live there, and they are attacking people, and they have soldiers, and she discovers while crossing the Fold with the military that she has these hidden secret powers. So she becomes a Grisha, which is basically like a sorcerer of sorts, and she's trained with that, and she has like this power that can destroy the Fold. But things are not as they seem, as they usually aren't. I loved this book so much. I loved that it was based in a Russian culture. I am all about that. But then you had one that was like German, and one that was like Nordic, and one that was like East Asian, and they were like all together. And oh my gosh, I loved it so much. There was not a lot of world building, which they kind of like throw you into the deep end and like kind of backload the information like as you keep going, and the middle kind of dragged a little bit. So for that reason, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Finally, I would like to talk about the 4 audiobooks I listened to this month. I started with The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and I'm so glad I did because it was just phenomenal. The narrator was out of this world, the voices, the everything. The book was amazing. For those who don't know about it, it's a young adult book about a girl named Star who her friend is shot by the police in front of her. So Star's friend Khalil is shot by the police in front of her, and it deals with the aftermath of all of that while Star is trying to navigate being in a predominantly white school and how they're reacting to it versus the neighborhood and how they're reacting to it. And there's gang life, and there's drugs, and there's just so much. And I loved it so much. I'm listening to the prequel right now, Concrete Rose, and I'll give you my thoughts about that for my June wrap-up because I'm not going to be able to finish that one in time. But both books are ones that I want to be able to get. I want to get physical copies to include in my library. I'm sorry, I'm gesticulating, and Willow's like, cool, let's play. Next, I listened to A Children's Bible by Lydia Millet. Oh, I gave The Hate You Give 5 out of 5. It exists. It's like these kids, they're like shockingly mature, and their parents rent like a lake house over the summer, and they're like all together, and the kids are like super mature, and the parents are like boozing and drugging and everything, and the kids are talking about how the end of the world is coming soon, and all of this crazy stuff. And I don't even know. At one point I thought maybe these kids are being raised in a cult, how it was worded, and then it just got weird, and everything is symbolic for something else. And I imagine like literature classes spend forever dissecting every little bit of it, and I hated it so much. It was a 1 star. I really hated it. The only reason I continued listening to it was because it was an audiobook. If it was a physical book, I probably would have DNF'd it. Next, I listened to Too Much and Never Enough by Mary L. Trump, and that is the book by Donald Trump's niece. She has a PhD in psychology, and she talks about her family and how they created the foundation for Trump to be the president that he was. And I'm going to keep this as non-political as possible, and I would appreciate if everybody kept it the same way down in the comments. I thought that Mary Trump provided a very interesting perspective of everything. I really enjoyed it. I thought the family history was fascinating as well, and I gave that a 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, I listened to The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis, and it's about a girl named Beth who is an orphan, and she finds out that she's like a chess prodigy, and it's basically about her life growing up and competing in chess. I really enjoyed the book. I really want to watch the show now. I'm glad I listened to the book because there was a lot of really techie like chess jargon that I would have definitely not liked in the book, like if I had been reading it, but I really enjoyed it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So guys, that's everything I read. It was definitely an up and down month for me in terms of books, but there were some good ones, some not so good ones, and you know, that's how it is sometimes. I'm very excited for June though, and I have a lot of great books to plan and to read. So until next time, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.